I think I'm gonna go ahead and get started, even though I sent the time wrong. But that's the notes. Um, okay. So a couple notes for the end of the release cycle. For QA, our QA manager, Martin, told me today that he'd be happy with Baby Dev's QA and stream patches, since it's mostly just making sure it works, or that, it is correct. They're pretty small. Also, he pointed out that if there's things that have been sitting and signed off for a while and haven't been QA'd, that if you want to test them again, because then that would put them at the top of the list, basically, if it's been in failed QA or in signed off for a while. And also just like having more testers often helps with those ones, because a lot of times they've been in there for a while because they're bigger. Not always, but I also thought I'd talk a little bit about these dates on the calendar that we talk about for the release. So soft feature freeze was last Tuesday, and pretty much that's anything that's not too huge or has a high risk of side effects is getting pushed after that. And they do review everything that was in past QA for it. Hard feature freeze is Tuesday, so no enhancements or new features will be pushed after Tuesday. Or starting Tuesday. I think starting Tuesday. Unless it's already marked as past QA and just hasn't been pushed yet. Hard bug freeze and string freeze are the 21st. So only bugs that are major, critical, or blocker will be pushed, and usually no string changes with the newer translation platform. Since that's a longer process, like since that starts showing up as soon as things get pushed now, usually still not freeze anything after string freeze, but it's a little bit less hard than it used to be. And then release date is the 27th, assuming nothing is terribly broken on the 27th. I think the only times I can think of that it got pushed is usually like everything worked until you put it in a package and then the package was failing for some reason. Things like that. So, yeah, just thought that would be good to go over. I'm going to put the notes in the chat again for John. I put a little note in there about testing getBZ to make sure it works. There's a bug, 6473, to test on. I usually just apply one patch and then sign it off and update the commit message, because that's easier than dealing with the, like, I think there's 8 patches that are unobsoleted on there right now. But that can be a good way if you're like, when you're setting up your dev bot or your KTD, just to make sure that your settings are all correct. Does anybody have their KTD up and running and might like to drive for a bug or two?
I drove last month, so I want to 1, 2, 3, not it.
That's fair. You've driven a lot too. I wasn't here last month, so.
Yeah, so last month we fixed my thingy that I wrote again, and I think it's signed off now. And then we signed off on one of Andrew's patches.
Cool. Under bugs, I listed some bugs, but I also put some searches, bugs marked with Academy, the string patches that need sign off and that are signed off, and trivial patches that need sign off. Those were from Martin, sent me a bunch of those. But I thought that it might be fun to try testing some SIP things because SIP is there's a couple extra steps when testing with SIP because you have to use the SIP emulator, which is just a little bit different. So I have two SIP bugs. One of them is very exciting, but I think we should do that one second because this would be a good way to learn how to use the SIP emulator. And then the other one's just a little more complicated, but exciting. So would anyone like to try signing off on 39820? John, is your DevBox KTD working?
I'm starting it up.
Cool. Okay. How about you, Wally? Do you have a KTD running? Oh, you're on the ref desk, aren't you? So that are you always on the ref desk during this meeting? Mostly, often. Yeah.
Some. It just depends on coverage.
Yeah. And Andrew's not here this week because he's doing training. So it's a little lighter. Also, I wonder if we might end up with anyone showing up at 12:30, 10:30, whatever, because my email is wrong. But I mean, I'd do it, but Lucas did it, so I can't sign it off. The other one I could sign off, but I would also love to QA. So
I'll have a go at doing one, if
okay.
you like. So, I don't think I've ever shared my screen on Zoom before, so we'll see how we go.
Okay. So this, I thought we'd start with bug 39820.
Right. So, is my screen? I never work out how you see what you're
We can see
sharing.
the bug
Is
right
that
now.
big? Is that big enough?
It is for me. Yep. Lots of nods.
Cool. So we set a circ rule. Yeah. So set a circ rule, default waiting hold cancellation policy. Whereabouts is this one?
The default waiting hold cancellation policy. It's down. It's the next section down.
All right, cool. Oh, it actually matches. Sometimes, sometimes it does. All, yes. Right, so we've got that. Add a hold or a patron and create a hold cancellation request. For whatever reason, I always search for Perl because there's half a dozen Perl books. Not that I know how to program in Perl, but and for some reason, I always use Mary.
I always
So-
like seeing what their defaults are. Like mine is X Power Tools, because that was the first one that I remembered. And then Henry is my default patron because I misread it as Henry Avocado the first time, and it has just stuck in my head since then as Henry Avocado.
Right, and so we create a hold cancellation request. So that's just delete it there, is it? Oh no, we'd have to go in as the patron, wouldn't we?
Yeah, on the OPEC side.
Yeah. So yeah, you always have to edit the username and pass. I hate numbers like that, so I just change it to their first name and give it a password that meets the rules.
I definitely set up SQL in my shared folder
Yeah.
so that it sets it to 3
Mm.
and doesn't have to be strewn.
So yeah, I either use a new browser or I just use the incognito window. Hold. So we want to cancel it. So let's actually cancel it. So
I don't remember if it actually cancels it or if it just looks like it cancels it on the OPEC side.
that's what I thought it would do. But there's no request. There's normally the request bits sit there, don't they?
Is there another preference for if it's a request or a cancellation?
Don't know.
I don't think so. It shows up on the holds awaiting pickup report though.
Oh, maybe I had to check it out so that it's waiting. That's probably what I did wrong, isn't it?
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
because that's for waiting.
Do that all again. I've never had to do this again, the steps again, because I got them wrong, but place.
Did you get them wrong, or did the bug not make it clear what all the steps you needed to do were?
It's normally the latter. Because yeah, it should have perhaps said a hold for a patron and then fulfill the whole, do the whole.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So never mind. Check out.
Or check it in?
Check it
Search
in.
the file?
Sorry. Yeah, I find sometimes when you're developers and they're close to it, they just assume everybody knows what they mean. Yeah, cool. Hey, we've got a hold cancellation request. Yep, and so now we use the SIP emulator. Now that's not very big, so I'll try and make it bigger. Is that readable?
Yeah.
So we'll try and run this SIP thing using what they've got, which is of course needs a and we got some fancy code back and And so I assume that command is supposed to fix it, but it doesn't. That's what we're looking for.
It looks like that code has a patron number and a barcode number in there. Do those match the ones that you use?
Oh, that's probably a good, before I apply the patch, we should probably do that.
It's Henry.
Yeah. Oh. Well, you would have been all right then.
I'm like wondering what the borrower or the
And the item number obviously has to match too. So good spotting.
this is why in my test plan for 2747 I put here are the borrowers I used and the item barcodes that I used, because then if I put in a command like that, it would work.
Well, it worked. So seems to have worked. Oh no. Oh no, there's no hold cancellation. Actually, what's going on there? It's still, the hold's still there, but it's not showing up on the holds to cancel queue. That may be because
Well,
don't
now
know.
it's in transit, but it wasn't in transit before. Is the SIP at a different branch?
Yes, it is that as well. So that's, shall we start again?
Yeah, because it's at MPL.
Right, we will.
Old is it? Centerville.
Right,
You
I'll,
can
I'll
go
just
to,
get.
I think
how
if
do
you
I
just
kick?
go to the
Oh,
title,
delete.
you could set
Yeah.
it for pickup at Midway.
Good. I'll just do it again.
Sounds good.
Sorry about that. But sometimes you have to figure these things out, don't you? Yeah.
Especially if it's not like a preference you're really familiar with. So,
And
oh, you need to set it to wait in first.
all right. And we would have just been going around in circles again. Never mind. All right. Request cancel. Yes. Right. So now that we've got that, we can.
So the A is localhost works because we're doing it on localhost, but if you wanted to emulate it to not localhost for some reason, -A, and then like the IP of where you were going. P is the port. -L is the library. SU is the user, and SP is the user's password. M is which SIP message do you want to send? Check in. And then the patron and item that it's for.
Now that we've got those right, trying to check in, and obviously if someone understands all of that, and holds waiting pickup should still be there. Still, so it's not cancelled. Okay, so now we can apply. Try 2 to 4 again. Yeah. So that's now gone. And for Mary, there's no holds. So that works.
Yay.
Yay. So just sign off. Yeah, I think the manual's actually got some good information about SIP commands, but because otherwise it's, if you're not used to it, it's a bit gobbledygook, really.
Yeah. I just put in the wiki page, and I will add this also to the notes.
Mhm. And I always just refresh the bug and make sure the status is signed off. And I will add it afterwards, but I will normally add some testing notes and a comment. So I would say after step 2, check to clarify step 2, check in to create the hold waiting. And since a lot of developers don't seem to do it anymore, I will also add a release note. So and doing those testing notes is north for me, because sometimes it goes through QA and they get feedback and comes back for sign off again. So, I can't remember what I did 5 minutes ago. This than a few weeks ago. So it's
Yep.
more for me. So
Yeah, and like if I was testing this, I probably would have said the borrower and user in the example are these borrowers and user,
right.
like
Yeah,
the
yeah.
borrower and item, and that the thing was at MPL. So the hold should be waiting at MPL,
Yeah.
just like that kind of thing. So that if I had to come back and test it again, or if whoever was QAing it was similarly missing that, that would be helpful.
Cool.
So.
So yeah, I'll do that now. But
So John, did you get yours up?
Yes, I did. So I can embarrass myself once again.
It's not an embarrassment. We all
Oh, challenge accepted.
So this one is a little bit, well, if we want to do the other SIP one, this bug is to migrate some of the SIP configuration into the staff interface. And this is part of our power to the partners, power to the users that we're working on, where this will make it easier for users to add their own SIP users, or even just check what SIP user settings are. And we had some interesting problems. Andrew and I tested this a while back, and there were some problems, but those have been fixed now. So this is bug 37893.
Do you want me to share my screen?
Yeah, that'd be good.
I don't think I have the option. Oh, there it is. It's different color, so I was ignoring it.
And this one is a little different too. I don't know if we've done one yet where it's on a branch instead of patches on the bug. I
Okay,
can't
you can see
remember
my
if we've
screen.
done one. So that's a little different because we have to add their repo to remotes. So let me find my notes for that. Okay. So to add a remote branch, what you need to do, and I wonder, David, do you know if you have to have Git set up with a SSH code to do this? Well, anyway.
I've found doing I haven't done it very often, but within the KDD, it all seems to work. You don't need
Okay.
to do, I've not had to do anything special.
Cool. So we would type git remote add, and then whatever you want to call their repo. Right now I have it saved as PTFSE because that's easier to type. But they're not PTFSE anymore. They're openfifth. And then you can say, okay, so sorry, need more screens. Okay. And then you would do
Link to the remote repository. So whatever.
oh, that's a SSH key. That's why if you do it this one.
What bug
All
number is
right.
this again?
This is 37893.
Okay.
So if you put that link in after where it says openfifth.
The is this in the chat or is this in
Yeah.
the bug? Okay, I'm looking in the wrong place.
I guess you probably could add just the single branch, but I usually just add the remote. And then
So
enter.
that one. Okay.
And then if you do git fetch openfifth, just that.
Just that.
And it might take a minute because it's gonna say, oh, there's like a billion branches. Okay, so now if you were to do like git checkout dash big B,
Dash what?
big capital B, I
Oh,
think,
B. Okay.
or just maybe small b. And then like I would call it bug 37893, but then before one word or with an underscore. And that's going to be the branch name. And then openfifth, oh, bug 37893, and then space openfifth slash, and then the URL for this, or the branch for this is new underscore bug underscore 37893,
Look good.
and then enter. And then I would do restart all. Though I guess doing it this way, David, it's not rebased against main, is it? Because it's just,
Whoosh, that's way over my head.
well, we'll test it, because it
I
doesn't,
made some instructions that seem to work, and I don't always understand what I'm doing with Git, but
yeah. Okay, so
That makes
so
me feel
that
better.
may not work.
I think that'll work. So if you go to the administration page and scroll down, there's now a self-service circulation SIP2 link.
It's not got a lot in there.
I wonder.
I think you have to do a database update somewhere
Yeah,
along,
you might need to do a database update and
or maybe
else.
we're not quite there yet.
No, because it should.
Oh,
It
it says
should let
run.
you
It
create stuff.
says run the update database later on, so maybe.
Maybe try a yarn build, because I wonder, it's Vue.js, and I wonder if the JS needs to be.
It says you should check out the branch and then reset all.
Oh, reset all. Okay. So if you reset underscore all.
All right.
I am sure.
Yeah. And then this is basically like rebuilding the dev box with the new branch.
Yeah, it does get confusing sometimes when patches have gone through a few iterations, and test plans split over all sorts of bugs, and then there's follow-ups, and then so what I appreciate is just having a nice consolidated test plan, particularly particularly when it's a bit more complicated. Anyway, that's just me, and I normally write it if they haven't written it, because yeah, as I said, sometimes you come back to have to test these again, so you got to remember what you did.
Yeah, and I as someone who did testing for a long time before I did development, I always try to write good test plans, or like when Jason had a question about a test plan, I rewrote the whole thing to make it clear yesterday. And I also, like, even though the new patch was only doing part of it, I rewrote the whole test plan to cover both the previous stuff and the new patch, so that it was, more helpful.
And
That's gonna make you log in again. Okay,
That looks different.
yes, so where did my patch go? Okay. So it wants you to create some institutions. So you can make an institution. And this.
Is it just anything I want?
Yep.
There we go. Very creative.
And then implementation. Let me look real quick at the test notes because this is one that we struggled with because we didn't know what it should be. And I thought that we had put that on the patch, but now I'm not seeing it, so it might just be in our messages. Institution or implementation. I believe I'm gonna look at that SIP thing that I put in the chat earlier because I think in there is where we figured out what it was. Because it's the same, it's like the same implementation for all of our stuff, I think. So implementation. Well, that is, I mean, probably what you could do is say, it's not clear enough. What is the implementation? And failed QA. Yeah, because there's no information about what that should be. But before we do that, the institute implementation. Does this have any SIP? Search in the code and Git is okay. Never were expected.
Yeah. There's a lot of text for all the commits on the branch, but they've all got, I haven't, there's so many of them, it's hard to.
Okay, so implementation should be ILS.
Just ILS. Oh,
Yep, because it is a integrated library system is the implementation. So it's always going to be ILS. So we should probably just have it be ILS. That was one of our notes for Pedro, was that it's not really clear what it should be or what the options are. But if you just put capital ILS in.
sorry, I was checking something, but start that again.
So the implementation should be ILS. But I think we should also put a comment on the bug that we had to go look up in the SIPconfig on the branch to figure out what that was supposed to be.
It's a bit of a different user interface pattern as well, because normally when you're setting something up, you have the name like a code and then you have a description. So that's quite.
So this is all
weird. SIP's weird, but anyway, that's not getting us through that.
But this is all I need for this right now.
I think actually set, do that. That name might not work. That might really need to be the ID of the branch. No, never mind. We'll see. We'll see what happens. So it says to create a institution. Does it want you to make more than one? Oh, interesting. It says that anytime you add a new SIP resource, it should prompt asking to restart. Oh, okay. That is no longer an issue with the latest patch. Instead, it just should restart on its own without asking. Okay. So what about making an account? So that would be like the SIP username and password. So we probably need to make, yeah, so it lets you select the institution. Then it's got questions like allow additional materials checkout. So that's for if you have the system preference turned on that you have to confirm circ materials. SIP can override that and say, we don't care if you're doing it on SIP. We only want to do that when staff is dealing with it. What happens if you like hover over the allow fields? Little question mark. So there's some nice tooltips. Hides fields not in the list, and inverse of hide fields. List of item types that are blocked from being issued. So that might be if you wanted to like not allow hotspots to be checked out at the self-check. You could block it here. Convert control and non-space separators into strings. Is the CR field a collection code or I think shelving location is the other choice. And so that might depend on who like your SIP provider is. Is there only one other choice? Some SIP third-party things want to always get the CT field, even if it's empty. So like a lot of these depend kind of on what you're using SIP with, like who your self-check machines are or your AMH or whatever. Disallow overpayment. These tooltips are nice because it gives you lots of information. Do you want holds to get captured? Do you want holds to block check-in? So it's nice because all the options are here and explained much better than like on the SIPconfig file where we edit it now. What status do you want to be missing? And I think that's mostly for if you're doing like SIP. There's some SIP like inventory wands and stuff. So that's if you want to set like a lost item to lost or not, lost or found. So again, if you're like doing inventory, do you want to mark it as found or do you want to keep it as lost and have that be like in a report? And then there's even more if you scroll down. So you can add like custom patron fields, like maybe your SIP self-checks want a certain extra field, and this way you can say like, okay, this is the field we're putting it in, and this is the template toolkit field, which I think then lets us put like more flexibility. So if we wanted to say like my example has always been other name, first name, but now with preferred name, that's less of a thing because that works. But same thing with like item fields, like if they want certain things. And you can also set system preference overrides. So, like in this example, all finds need override. If it's set to 1, would mean staff would have to override anytime there's any fines. So if that's how you have it set, but you don't want to do it on the SIP, you can do that. So that's like a good way to be able to override just like specific things for the SIP users. And also like templates for this is what the AE looks like.
So for this test, we don't need to worry about setting too many of these, right? We're just
Right. It's mostly like familiarize yourself with it. And then if you save that, what's a listener? Let's add a listener. So that would be SIP listeners are, I think that's more if, I don't know much about SIP listeners actually, and I think this was another place that we had questions. Let me find mine. That's helpful. I put a note that I learned what SIP listeners are. Okay, so that would be okay, so according to Kyle, it's basically a service. Services basically define the port and protocol along with timeouts. We mostly only ever have one listener defined on our sites at least. And if you don't have any valid listener defined, then SIP wouldn't work at all. So I think I wonder then if that means that there is this default listener. And
is
you
there a way to
could,
find out?
I'm looking at the code on the branch at the SIP config because that's where it would. Okay, so yes, there is a listener service defined already, and I bet that I would not worry about creating one because I think what's going to happen is when we do the next step after this, which is updating the run update database, it should migrate anything that's in that SIP config in. And so it'll migrate those.
So that seems to be what's in the default SIP config file for your instance. So if you have a look at under /etc/koha/sites/kohadev.
This is like if you did in the command line did like cat space slash. You just said what it is. Do you have it up in front of you, David? The path. Or would it just be under etc. SIPconfig? Yes, capital S, SIPconfig. Yeah, so that's where there's services there that are already defined.
Yep, so it matches.
So then the next step in the test plan is to run update database on the command line, all one word. Just update database.
Oh, update,
No,
okay.
sorry. Run the process, update database.
Update database.
Yep. And then now if you go to like institutions. What about what if you go to listeners in here?
Got listeners.
Yep, so the listeners got imported. Were there, so now if you go back to the command line and nano that same file. Is there anything else in there that should have imported? Like other accounts.
Server.
Yeah, so there
it looks
should
like
be
it should.
other accounts. What if you go back to the command line and then do a reset all and then update database? Because I bet that it's being weird about it because there are already
It was
things.
expecting it to be empty and we
Yeah.
put stuff in there.
Oh, and actually you probably don't need to update. Oh wait, yeah. No, you would want to update the database because doing reset all earlier didn't fix that. Didn't run that.
So as soon as this finishes, update database right away.
Yep.
Yeah. One of my bugbears is that particularly this is quite a complicated change.
Yeah, this is more complicated than I remembered. So
and I think it's, you
Yeah.
need a proper test plan because we're sort of figuring things out, which is good sometimes. It's quite interesting, but you wouldn't want a person new to testing bugs to try and figure this out. I don't think.
I would not have figured any of this out. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, one of my bugbears is that stuff like this. So I'm gonna do a talk at KohaCon. Well, I've said I'll do a talk, but just some of the things from testing bugs, and one of them is, can we please have a test plan that assumes you don't know anything?
Yeah.
Because something like this where they've been iterating for a while, they're really familiar with all the nuances and various things and what they're trying to do. But
that looks much better now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So honestly, I would probably fail QA this and say, can we have more information about like what is an implementation? And also we had to clear out the institutions that we'd made for the import to work at the update database step.
Okay, so are we gonna do that then, or?
Yeah, I mean, I would recommend. I mean, I could do it or you could do it. Any of us could do it, but you can just do it on the bug. You don't have to do like command line anything. You can just go to the
Okay, just go.
Bugzilla.
I have Bugzilla, so let's bring it over here. Add comment.
Yeah.
Or do,
And I would say like at step 4, it's unclear like what implementation is in the institution. And at step 6, nothing imported unless you deleted everything you had already created. And then
I'd definitely stay. Could we have a nice complete test plan with step by step?
yeah.
Because yeah, some of those other patches, they've got
Maybe
running some Cypress tests, which
maybe say that
just
covers like all the patches. So it's all in one place.
And in the second one, say have created institutions.
Oh yeah.
yeah, everyone can find out how bad I am typing in real time.
Everybody's bad at typing in real time when they're getting watched. And then
Yeah.
just change the status to failed QA.
And then that's good.
Yep.
All right. I probably didn't need to type failed QA then if I had a status there. And then is there anything I needed to back all this out I did over here?
So I would just git checkout main.
Like that?
Mm-hmm. And then git branch dash uppercase D. That's going to delete it. Space. And then bug underscore 37893.
You can normally use autocomplete. So if you just have it partially, you should be able to just press tab and it should pick up the rest of the.
And then I would probably reset all because it made some changes before.
Yeah, the database update.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the other bit, I would probably add a comment if you think it is. I just think this is a really good idea in terms of making some of that configurable in the UI because
Yeah.
nothing worse than I assume as a developer getting failed QA and you spent all this work and effort but
Yes,
sometimes
that is
a little positive message. So I think this is a good idea.
Yeah, and sometimes when you fail QA, it'll be like, this all worked really well except one step.
Although all the people working on this have got reasonably thick skin, so I'm not sure they're not
So I'm
going to be too upset that they get failed QA.
There.
Yeah.
Positive feedback.
Yes. Positive feedback. A feedback sandwich is always good. Nice thing. Problems. Nice thing.
Yeah, I don't want to burn any goodwill just yet.
Not yet, maybe later though.
Yeah, later.
So cool. If anyone wants to try testing off other things, there's more bugs that I listed, but I have some other things that I need to do before. I can do more testing, but there's also those links are nice if you're ever looking to just try testing some sign off when you know, have free time, as we all have plenty of. I say very sarcastically. So, but those links are all good ways to find things that are like, they need sign off, or the string patches that could be QA'd, which, because those are string patches, mostly it's just like changing the display. So, although one of these string changes has a like 16 line test plan with subtest letters in there. So I'm kind of surprised it's listed as a string patch, but basically just going through and making sure it works, and usually for QA you'd look at the code too, and like the code is pretty, it took out some things and added some other things. None of it's like too complicated, but some of it is like Perl things and not just strings. So I'm a little surprised that this isn't string. And then the other thing that I would do if you are QA in a string patch is run the QA tool, which is just QA on the command line once you've applied them. Because then if there's anything that's making a test fail or untidied or whatever, that's something to keep in mind there. And our next meeting is June 12th at 10 a.m. and I will /11/12/1, and I will put it at the correct time in my next email. So
Talking about fails, I did there's AGM for an organization I'm part of, and I sent the wrong link. There was to the meeting, and there was 2 meetings running at one stage. So, because some people figured out the right Zoom link, and so yeah, never good to. Feels awful when you get it wrong, but I checked everything apart from the link.
yep. And I've sent out the wrong link before for meetings so many times. Oh my gosh, when I was the koha-US president, I did that a lot. Be like, here's the meeting for the board meeting in the regular meeting reminder. Fun times. Okay, well, I'm gonna head out. Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Thank you, Lisette.
Yeah.